Okay, so hello everyone. As you could hear, my name is Stanisław Rogusz, and today I'm going to talk to you about hallucinogens in native communities. But before we start, please remember that this presentation is not meant to advertise or promote any use of psychedelics or other illegal substances. So with that said, do you read books? No. Yes. All right. I do. And I have a taste for very weird books like self-help, pop psychology, and grifty meditation, how to live your life stuff. And this is a masterpiece of that. This is a book titled The Teachings of Don Juan, a Yaqui Way of Knowledge. It was authored by Carlos Castañeda. It was published in 1968. And the guy who wrote it at the time was a student of cultural anthropology at the University of California in Los Angeles. This book is a testimony of his apprenticeship as a sorcerer student. And the main body of the book is deep talks with his mentor and descriptions of psychedelic trips that they did together. So, Yaqui Way of Knowledge. Yaqui are a tribe coming from the western part of Mexico, from Sonoran Desert. They are known to be very combative tribe. They have a long story of independence. They are one of the few tribes that never surrendered to the Spaniards, or to the colonizers. And later, after that, they had many attempts of uprisings against the Spaniards and against the Mexican government. Their spirituality consists of 9 realms of the world that one can access by some strange rituals. One of them being the Yaqui deer dance. On the right side of the slide you can see a guy dressed as a Yaqui deer dancer. And then in this ritual, by singing, weeping and dancing, they can communicate with the spirits. However, none of that is mentioned in the book. What is mentioned in the book, however, are those 3 plant and fungi species. First of them, Datura stramonium, is a very toxic plant known as devil's weed. It contains atropine and scopolamine, a strong drugs that are used in some health diseases but can, in bigger doses, kill you. Author describes that after taking Datura, he was feeling anxious, he was feeling sweat around his body, he was shaking, and he was experiencing delusion. The other 2 species, Lophophora williamsi and Psilocybe mexicana, are sources of classical hallucinogens. First of them, Lophophora williamsi, is commonly known as peyote. So that's a cactus containing mescaline, a strong psychedelic. Author describes how, after taking it, he met a godlike creature made out of light. And he had a big talk with this godlike being, while also running around the house naked. The other source of the substances are Psilocybe mexicana, so the magic mushrooms. He describes how, after taking them with his mentor, they transformed into crows and they spied on the person in Los Angeles. So, okay, we will be talking about psychedelics, but to understand what they are, we have to understand how our brain works. So, our brain, human brain, consists of nerve cells. Nerve cells, their main function is to process signals that we detect with our bodies and our senses. The signals are then processed by transmission between them in different regions of the brain and the body. The transmission of the signal happens in the synapse, so the place of connection between 2 cells. And this synapse looks like that. We have a presynaptic cell that contains neurotransmitter. This neurotransmitter is then released into synaptic cleft, so the space between the synapse building cells. In this case, you can see that the neurotransmitter is serotonin. This serotonin is then detected by 5-HT receptors. And this detection is allowing the other cell to get excited and transmit the signal further. As you can see on the right side, hallucinogens work differently. They are similar in shape, however, they are administered from the outside, they interact with the same receptor, and their detection causes much stronger and much weirder effect. Coming back to the book. Carlos Castañeda was a prolific author. He wrote over 8 books, all of them exploring the same theme of being a testimony of traineeship of a sorcerer. They were published in the 60s and 70s. Also, his first book, The Teachings of Don Juan, granted him his bachelor. Later books granted him his PhD at the University of California. All of the books were published just in the time of the new wave of thinking and in the time of the hippie fashion. So they fitted exactly and sparked some interest into the psychedelics. However, most probably, they were all works of fiction. Most probably, many critics point out to the fact that probably Don Juan Matus never existed. When I was reading the book, I later confronted it with the knowledge about the Yaqui tribe, which was accessible in the internet. And, well, the book doesn't take place in the territory where the Yaqui tribe exists, resides, lives. The book doesn't mention any Yaqui words. It doesn't mention any part of Yaqui culture. And from what I know, Yaqui tribe is not using psychedelics in their spiritual practice. So a guy fabricated the story. However, there is a tribe that might have been a great inspiration for him. They are called the Witcher tribe. They come from the central region of Mexico, from a mountain range of Sierra Madre Occidental, and they are known for their rich religious culture, for their colorful artwork, and they are quite peaceful and very spiritual. They use peyote on the daily basis, let's say, for their spiritual practice. And to gather the peyote that they use throughout the year, they have an annual pilgrimage to a place they call Wirikuta. Then they collect the peyote and they use it to connect with the spirits. And the other tribe that is very important to mention in this subject of psychedelics is Shipibo-Conibo. They come from the Peruvian part of Amazon rainforest. They call themselves the guardians of the forest, and they also have a very rich cosmology, spirituality, and culture. And one of the main parts of their culture is taking ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a mixture containing DMT, dimethyltryptamine, a very strong psychedelic known also as a God's particle. They now also sell this ayahuasca and these mystical experiences to the outsiders. Like this guy on the right side, he's part of the institution that invites strangers to come and try something mystical. So we know something about the past of the psychedelics. Let's get into the present and the future. Here I would like to show you how our brain is affected by the psychedelics. On the left side, you can see the representation of human brain in normal state, like right now. We have some brain regions represented by circles and dots that are connected with some paths. And after administration of psilocybin, so the active substance of magic mushrooms, these connections, well, there is more of them. And this might be a quite nice solution for some mental illnesses. Some people consider mental illness to be a harmful path between different regions, some like path that our thoughts take to reach a certain destination. And psychedelics, because they create a shift in perspective, they might lead us to changing our thought patterns and our behaviors, and then thus maybe mitigating the symptoms of mental illnesses. There is some research supporting this claim. And first of all, I would like to show you one of the most cited works. It was done on 70 patients who were diagnosed with life-threatening cancer. These people were scored for severity of depression symptoms at 4 time points. First of all, they were scored before the treatment. Then after first dose of psilocybin, second dose of psilocybin, and then after 6 months. And as you can see, in each of the cases, the depression severity was decreased. And the effect was also lasting for those 6 months. In another study, done on 70 people with alcohol use disorder, they underwent therapy, addiction therapy, which was later coupled with either placebo or psilocybin. And you can see on this graph here that administration of psilocybin allowed for a bigger decrease in heavy drinking days in those alcoholics than the placebo. And that this effect was also lasting up to 36 weeks. It was also decreased in this relative percent on the right side. And one of the last studies that I would like to show you, like last study, was done on 50 people who were smoking for over 30 years. At least the mean of 6 failed attempts of quitting. And these people, after 6 months after administration of psilocybin, 12 of them quit smoking. So the effect was very strong, especially that they didn't manage to do that in the past. And when they were asked why, how did it work for them, what did it do to them to quit smoking, they said, quote, "It allowed me to see that there is something bigger than smoking addiction." And another quote, "I understood that my higher self is a non-smoker." So the effect was really strong and, as you can see, lasting and efficient. So psychedelics seem to have a complicated past. They were also always a part of indigenous cultures. They were the essence of a grifty book. And now they become an exciting field of neuroscience and research progress. However, please remember that they can cause harm and that they remain illegal in many countries. Also remember that the patients described in those studies remained under diligent care of health professionals, which you cannot replicate at home. What I would like to say to finish this presentation is that it is very exciting for us as a young generation to see how there is a shift in the relationship we have with these complicated substances and how this shift affects our present, our future, and how it comes from our past. Thank you so much, and I wait for your questions.
Okay, thank you so much. And now it's a questions time, but I would like to start, if you don't mind. So I have 2 questions, but firstly, why this author make something like this? Why he fabricate all this information? Like, what's the point? Can you explain us?
Well, I don't know exactly what his motivation was, part of doing his bachelor, I guess. But I can tell you that after his work was done, he created a cult that was later spread over the United States. He became some kind of a guru. He gave seminars and lessons on how to use psychedelics, and from like his private life part of this story is that he lived with like 3 or 4 women who were his, quote, witches. And after his death, those they went to a desert and they were never found. Only a car was found and some sunburned bones. So I hope that answers your questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, please, Daniel.
That's an interesting question. Are there any, let's say, free available psychedelic substances now, or can you get some substances without medical prescription, or for now, like anything of that is that's what.
I'm sorry, but I'm not allowed to answer this question. From my knowledge, there are some.
I mean, officially, like
Yes, there are substances that can get you high and that can actually kill you. Like you said, datura. For example, it is common in some gardens because it's quite a nice plant, but, well, as I said, it can kill you. Yeah, I don't think I can say anything more through this microphone, but maybe later you can come to me and I will tell you something more.
I mean, if it's official, it will be easy to find info in any case. So, like, I'm asking, like, is it official?
Okay, stop it, please.
Oh, well, I didn't find many. We can search that up later together, okay? Only things that I remember from reading about psychedelics when I was preparing for this presentation is that many people experience fear because of this strange shift in perception. And this fear can cause to like really strong action that you can undertake. And people who describe doing trips with psychedelics at all, they always remind you to have a person who will be a trip sitter. So a person who will take care of you while you are drifting away and experiencing this all crazy stuff. But about adverse effects, I would have to learn more.
Why have you decided to speak about this topic?
Okay, why have I decided to speak about this topic? Well, the direct inspiration for this topic was reading this crazy book. It was given to me by my father. Well, it sparked some really nice discussion after that. But the inspiration... Okay, my master thesis is about fungi. And when I started doing my research around the fungi, I read another book, Entangled Life. And this is a very nice book by Marilyn Sheldrake, and it is describing how fungi are like doing stuff around the world, how they are very interesting kingdom of life. And upon there was this illustration of those circles, these two circles that I showed you. And I thought it was really interesting how he described how psychedelic fungi, they are in some ways evolutionary winners, but also evolutionary losers, because why do they do that? What's their profit of being psychedelic? So that's the inspiration. Sorry, one more question.
It's the last one, please, because we need to...
I have a question about this service in which people were speaking how they feel after psychedelics. You showed the graph about people who stopped smoking. Did they take these psychedelics frequently, or was it just one-time occasion?
Yeah, it was one dose, and then I believe there was a second dose. So they had like 2 trips with a person who was with them then. So to take care and observe their bodies and their feelings.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Woo!